since the Italian Grand Prix Mugello in 2023. Mark completing your front row of the grid then as we get set to go sprinting here in Japan in about 25 minutes time. In the company of Matt Burt, Lewis Silverby in the commentary box, Jack Appleyard down in what is a very hot and humid pit lane. Well, if this championship is to roll on into Mandalika next weekend over in Indonesia, Lewis, Alex Marquez is going to have to deliver something very, very special because he finds himself down on the middle of the third row of the grid in 8th place, and he somehow has to find a way of beating brother Mark.
It's not as bad as it looked at the start of the day for Alex Marquez. We knew he had to go through qualifying 1, and boy, it was a huge fight, as big a fight as it was getting that Ducati stopped into turn 11 for Alex Marquez, but he did get himself into qualifying 2, but only as far as the third row of the grid. And we haven't seen any evidence in this Japanese Grand Prix weekend so far that Alex Marquez has got the kind of pace of performance to beat Marc Marquez today or tomorrow, but that is all in the past. What's ahead of us is a 12-lap Tissot sprint where, of course, Marc Marquez did drop the ball last time out at Misano. So Alex Marquez is certainly going to give everything to keep his older brother waiting, but all the cards are in Marc Marquez's hands.
Shot. What a shot that was of Alex, pleading, begging for that GP24 Ducati to stop underneath him, breaking from 310 km/h down to 85 km/h in less than 240 metres. Home hopes, the big home crowd favourite, resting firmly on the broad shoulders of Ayagura, who can probably count himself very unlucky to be starting the Sprint Grand Prix here in front of his home crowd down in 13th place. There was late yellow flag drama, as we've seen so often down the years, which cost Ayagura his chance to fight for a place inside the top 10, maybe even better. Didn't get himself out of that tricky Q1 session. Agura, another rider, staking his Aprilia left and right in the heavy braking zones. Yeah, that was how we were looking in the commentary box as well, as we were hoping that I could get an RSGP stopped on the brakes. He has got massive home support, about to make his MotoGP debut in front of his home crowd. Of course, this weekend, the first chance that the Japanese fans have been able to see Agura-san since he won the Moto2 World Championship last year.
But the headlines this morning in qualifying 2 were taken by the Pecco Bagnaia rebirth. Is it indeed Pecco Bagnaia's return to his very best? Well, he's on pole position for just the second time this season. The first pole had a little bit of fortune attached to it, it has to be said, in Brno earlier in the season, where there were some late yellow flags and a crash for Marc Marquez. Pecco did the job all on his own this time. We thought yesterday morning when he topped FP1 that there were signs of recovery once again. Davide Tollozzi proclaimed that Pecco was back at the end of free practice 1. If he converts pole position into a sprint win today, I might well agree with him.
No sprint podium in 7 for the Italian, only 5 at sprint podiums all season so far for Pecco Bagnaia. Something of a shock given recent form to see the Italian heading qualifying this morning, and certainly something of a shock to find a factory Honda on the front row of the grid. So close to what would have been a fairy tale pole position for Joan Mir on screens right now. Just 900ths away from pole behind Pecco Bagnaia. As mentioned, his first front row in 59 Grand Prix. First factory Honda front row since Marc Marquez qualified second in Mugello back in 2023. Go Taka go! Well, that is the message from some Japanese fans who look like they're more armed ready for a fancy dress party, don't they, than a 12-lap sprint that's coming your way here in Motegi. Yeah, Taka Nakagami, of course, if you're joining us for the first time this weekend, is a Honda wildcard here this weekend. He's down in 20th on the grid.
And down in 9th place, and the reason I say down is because we expected Marco Bezzecchi to be a genuine pole position challenger earlier on this morning. Of course, right at the start of the season, the Achilles heel for Aprilia and Bez was qualifying pace. Well, certainly didn't maximise Q2 earlier on today, and what was a super fast Q2 with Bagnaia setting that new all-time lap record. Bezzecchi, having topped the times yesterday, was expecting to be in that battle for the front row, but the back of row 3 means that Bez can have to produce some serious heroics to get himself in the podium battle from there.
Yeah, very disappointing that Q2 this morning as far as Bezzecchi's concerned. It's been a very up and down sort of roller coaster weekend. Started off with 2 crashes in FP1 yesterday morning, bounced back superbly in practice to lead the way. So yeah, we expected a lot more from Bez, 9th on the grid. Still not qualified inside the top 10 in 7 appearances for the factory Aprilia squad. That's our current and still reigning MotoGP World Champion. Don't think we're going to be saying that for too much longer into the future. Marc Marquez looks to dethrone the Martinet to potentially here in Motegi. Martin with yet more work to do from 17th place on the grid. Spagnola then filters out of pit lane. His first ever pole position on Japanese soil in MotoGP. Always good to see the home crowd having some home heroes to roar on. And they've got a pair of them here today, haven't they? Taki Nakagami, HRC, test team star, 20th on the grid. As mentioned, he's obviously doing so much key work, vital work behind the scenes in tandem with Aleix Espargaro over in Europe, because that RC213V is really coming on strong.
It's a fuel-thirsty circuit, isn't it, this mobility result, Motegi, with so much acceleration in braking. That's where you saw Marc Marquez going up walking speed down the back straight, down towards turn number 3. Of course, it was famously here in 2022 when Aprilia forgot to switch it off on Aleix Espargaro as a Aprilia had to pit for a bike change at the end of the warm-up lap. Don't expect any repeats of that kind of mistake here today. Even in the sprint distance, this is a punishing circuit for rider and machine.
Yeah, this is the slowest lap you'll ever see of Motegi from the creme de la creme in MotoGP. Well, as mentioned, it has been a phenomenal home round so far as Honda are concerned. 3 bikes are fighting for pole position in Q2 this morning. The best of them, Joan Mir on the front row, Luca Marini 7th. There are going to be high hopes, I'm sure, high expectations for Honda in this upcoming sprint. Let's get the thoughts from the boss, Alberto Pujo. Joined Jack. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, under this searing Japanese heat. Alberto, what a weekend it's been so far. Both Luca and Joan have looked really, really fast. Joan, obviously, from the front row of the grid, the big question is, what's possible today?
Well, when you're in a grid, everything is possible, but it's not an easy race, of course, but at least we have some chances because the starting position is not so bad, so yeah, they need to have a good start and see from there where we can do and what pace we can give.
Genuine podium contenders, do you feel?
I have to think yes, but we will see.
Good luck.
Thank
21. The last time of any sort Joan Mir found himself on a podium. But more prevalent here in Motegi with all the hard braking, all the stopping you have to do. Front tyre temperature and front tyre pressure are a key issue to contend with as well. We're on board with El Diablo, Fabio Quartararo. This is a very helpful downhill section here in Motegi because you can just the throttle and roll down the hill, save as much fuel as you possibly can. Fabio Quartararo getting a 10-mile-an-hour slipstream behind Marc Marquez.
A race here between the world champions into the hairpin at the end of the back straight there. Quartararo, Mir and Marc Marquez all side by side, and all of them starting on the frontier of the grid. The world champions amongst the field really did stand up this morning and show their class. Yes, Jorge Martin, of course, had his issues in qualifying 1, but the 4 other world champions on the grid, all inside the top 5 places on the grid.
Marc Marquez then coming to the front row for the 13th time in 17 Grand Prix so far this year. Not capture the world championship in this upcoming 12-lap sprint, but over double the distance tomorrow. And the comeback loading, which has been a hashtag trending on social media throughout the build-up to this Japanese Grand Prix. Happy comeback completed, comeback fully loaded. We are 93 fans, Campione Mark, champion Mark. Well, they're already predicting the future. Let's be honest, this is just a matter of time, isn't it? Mark said it's not imperative, it wouldn't be a disaster if he doesn't win the championship here this weekend, as Pedro Acosta was so anxious to preserve the ball. It looks like it's shut off. Of course, Acosta, your heart went out to the Spaniard this morning in qualifying. Fastest in FP2, second quickest yesterday, and looking bang on the money for potentially fighting for back-to-back pole positions. That all went awry on the warm-up lap, or on his sort of outlap in Q2 when there was a throttle issue with his number 1 at KTM RC16, cost him 10 minutes of the session. He had 1 crack on a soft tyre, and fair play to actually to Acosta. because on that one chance he had, he delivered a 1:43.069, which put him fourth, heading the second row of the grid. He was only 200ths away from Marc Marquez on the front row. And every rider tends to find a step forward, don't they, on that second soft rear tyre. So you do feel that Acosta probably would have had big aspirations for the front row, if not better.
And surely he'll be aggressive early on. This is the front row. Bagnaia, Mir and Marc Marquez. Pedro Acosta fourth and surely eyeing the podium today ahead of Fabio Quartararo and Frankie Morbidelli, who came through Q1. Luca Marini seventh ahead of fellow Q1 graduate Alex Marquez. Marco Bezzecchi underperforming, you have to say, in ninth. Top Aprilia though ahead of Ralph Fernandez 10th. Joan Zarco 11th ahead of Fabio Gian Antonio, who paid the price for a rather scruffy Q2 session. Ayagura missed out narrowly in Q1, 13th for the home favourite ahead of Jack Miller and Fermin Aldeguer. Aldeguer crashed in Q1. Miguel Oliveira, who used some cunning tactics to get himself up into 16th on the grid in Q1 ahead of Jorge Martin and Brad Binder, who had a big crash at turn 12 in that Q1 session. Alex Rins, another Q1 forward, 19th for him ahead of Taka Nakagami and Enea Bastianini on a missable weekend for Tech 3, with Solkjær Chandra ahead of the second of the KTMs from Tech 3, Maverick Vinales 23rd.
As expected, as you can see on the graphics, every rider medium front tyre, soft rear tyre for this 12-lap shootout here in Motegi. Well, we're looking at Pedro Acosta. You felt there was plenty more to come from the Spaniard in that Q2 this morning. Let's go and get the thoughts of his crew chief, Paul Travath. I'm sure they expect him to be in the medal hunt, Jack.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Paul, any issues on the sighting lap there?
No, luckily we're all good, mate. We're all good. Yeah, we had a little issue in qualifying, of course, which set us back a little bit, but to be honest, Pedro come through there really good, so we're happy with how that went.
Yeah, massively salvaged it from what could have been a pretty bleak qualifying to be here on the second row of the grid. You must feel that you can go at the front and challenge here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yesterday we were fast, but he didn't have a great feeling. We did a lot of work overnight. He did a lot of work himself on his riding, and we come out fighting today in a much better place. So he's feeling good on the bike. He looks good. Everything seems in the right place, mate. So we hope for it. Good luck. Cheers, bud. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Acosta's crew chief, Paul Travath. He was on pole here last year, crashing out of the leader course in the sprint and then crashing out early in the Grand Prix when he was hunting down race leader Pecco Bagnaia. Morbidelli, well, he completes that second row in 6th place. Directly behind him in 9th on the 3rd row of the grid will be Aprilia Racing's Marco Bezzecchi, who has to feel a little bit like at his nose for that joint this morning. Expected much more from Bez. A 1:43.323 was almost half a second away from pole position and finds himself 9th, having been the fastest rider, reference rider on Friday. This Acosta being a little bit too slow on his cool-down lap.
It's on its way into turn 10, I believe, isn't it? Just at the start of the back straight. This is just how the lengths that the riders prefer to go to save fuel. Look at him up in a high gear, up in 4th gear, now up into 5th gear. It's the way to save fuel. High gear and next to no throttle.
Let's go back down to Jack then on the grid.
Yeah, I've got Pablo Nieto with me next door to Frankie Morbidelli, who did a good job in qualifying, and in particular in that free practice 2 session looked pretty good on used rubber. Is the podium an obvious target, but potentially this one does look wide open.
Yeah, we will try, no? But always we know it's going to be very, very difficult. We know also that it's very important first lap, first corner, but also in this track there's more possibilities to make some overtakes. So it's going to be hard, but we have to try to make our best.
After a good day for Didier yesterday, didn't put it together this morning. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, maybe the crash that he made in P3 wasn't in the right moment. Always, when you have a crash, you lose a little bit the confidence. Then the qualifying wasn't not so good. But anyway, I think he can make also a very good race. Like in this track, also it's important to try to make overtakes and then try to make something important, like always. Thanks, Pablo. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pablo Nieto. Of course, a massive weekend beckons over in Indonesia next weekend for the Pertamina Enduro back VR46 racing team. I'm sure you're aware, of course, Indonesian fans, next Tuesday over in Jakarta for the very first time, Valentino Rossi will be joining his riders, Frankie Morbidelli and Fabio Gian Antonio, for a special Indonesian Grand Prix pre-event. So no excuse, Indo fans. You've been asking for Valentino Rossi to make a trip to that part of the world for so many years, and he is coming to Indonesia next Tuesday for what I'm sure is going to be a packed-out free event. Under blue skies, as you can get an indication of how hot and humid it has been so far here this weekend, Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez both seeking a bit of shelter, a bit of sanctuary in their respective Ducati garages. Sweltering heat and humidity it was here yesterday when we were seeing ambient temperatures just tipping over 30 degrees. It doesn't feel a lot cooler, I have to say, here today. Wonder how Joan Mir is feeling from what is a very, very, very rare front row start in MotoGP. Pecco Bagnaia, well, Davide Tardozzi told Jack yesterday that Bagnaia is back, and that was proved this morning in qualifying. Back with the bang, wasn't he, with that second pole position? What are they prospects? What do they think Pecco can deliver in this sprint upcoming? Jack, down to you with Davide.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating one, Davide. For you, who's the favourite here, Pecco or Marc? Because I can't decide between the two.
I'm really pleased to have Pecco back and that the engineers found the way to give him back the confidence that he deserves. So we'll see. I think that it will be a very tough race because the opponent, it seems that are very fast also on the race pace. Aporto shows something important. Hondas are very fast. Bentley too. So we'll see because we did a good qualify, but race never.
Marc said yesterday that the priority is the championship over wins this weekend, but do you believe him? I don't. It's Marc Marquez, surely he's gunning for victory.
No, I believe it because Marc is thinking now to the championship. We spoke a lot about that, and Marc is going to concentrate to gain those 3 points on Alex, and that's the target. And in the future, we'll see whether he will be champion, 2025 champion. He can think about winning races, and that's it.
Thanks, Davide. Good luck.
Thanks, Jack, as always. Thanks to Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi. So our pole sitter Pecco Bagnaia started the season with 3 successive sprint podiums, 3 successive third places in Thailand, Argentina and in Texas. Since then, though, the medals have been few and far between for the double MotoGP world champion. Only 2 since in Jerez, his most recent one. Feels like an awful long time ago, doesn't it? In Mugello in front of his home crowd. He's been nowhere in the last 3 sprints. 13th in Hungary, 14th in Barcelona, 13th in Misano. I think that's why we're happily surprised. I mean, we're so shocked to see Pecco in the space of a fortnight go from almost rock bottom back to a record-busting time in qualifying. It's been a heck of a transformation in such a short space of time.
And I never thought I'd be waiting until the 27th of September for Pecco Bagnaia to take a sprint win in 2025. Not since the final sprint of 2024, when Bagnaia was trying to secure an unlikely World Championship comeback. Has Bagnaia been successful on a Saturday? Well, for Alex Marquez, it's been a damage limitation job already today. He got out of Q1 and qualified in the middle of row 3. Can he go forwards from there? Michele Massini is talking to Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big question. It was a tough Friday for Alex. Better today so far, but has he found that feeling that's going to allow him to attack in the sprint, Michele?
I have to say that today we find some feeling, especially in the front braking, like yesterday we struggled, as you said. And I think that we can make a good race today, but at least we have to overtake 3-4 riders in the first lap, I think, because it will be crucial. And then we see if we can take also some data to use for tomorrow.
Thanks, Michele. Good luck.
Welcome.
Thanks, Michele Massini. Thanks to Jack. Only 1 race this season previously has Alex started lower. That was 11th in our first visit to the Balaton Park circuit in Hungary. Just a quick reference on the 2 Red Bull KTM Tech 3 riders. They've had a nightmare experience here in Motegi. Maverick Vinales, 23rd, his worst ever grid position in MotoGP. It just shows fine margins for Ordineo Bastianini. He missed out on a direct spot in Q2 yesterday by 9 thousandths of a second. I mean, what's that? Half a bike length, quarter of a bike length? And having missed out on that spot in Q2, going into Q1 this morning, nothing really going for the Italian. 21st on the grid, not even starting inside the top 20 when he was 9 thousandths of a second outside of Q2.
Looks like a late change of equipment coming there for Luca Marini. That was his crew chief, Christian Pupelin, who was running back onto the grid with Luca Marini's crash helmet in his hands. So Luca Marini perhaps reporting something on the cycling lap, which requires a change of helmet. There's Jack Miller getting ready to attack, like we know Jack Miller will. He goes from 14th place on the grid. Well, it felt like an underperformance for Aprilia with Marco Motegi qualifying 9th. Surely he will be looking forwards to Paolo Bonora, speaking of Jack.
Yeah, it's been such a strong run of results for Marco of late, but just couldn't put it together in qualifying. Paolo, how much is that going to hamper him in this?
Yeah, he didn't put all together, as you said. Unfortunately, he had the lap time possibility, the time attack possibility, but he didn't put it together. And in the split 3, he didn't do as best as he can do. But despite of the not a good qualifying, we keep the finger crossed because we totally trust on him and also in Jorge, because here there is some places where you can take overtake somebody. Split 3, he didn't do as best as he can do. But despite of the not a good qualifying, we keep the finger crossed because we totally trust on him and also in Jorge, because here there is some places where you can take overtake somebody. And to be honest, in particular for Marco's side, he has a good race pace. So probably not today because it is much shorter distance. But for tomorrow, we hope that he will do a better result.
Thanks, Paolo.
Thanks so much.
Thanks to Aprilia boss Paolo Bonora. We just looked there at what is very soon to be our outgoing MotoGP World Champion, Jorge Martin, 17 on the grid. Marc Marquez then. This time tomorrow, we could be hailing him as the 2025 MotoGP World Champion. Well, he's that young fan's hero. He's so many riders' hero, isn't he, around the world. Marc Marquez. It has been some journey, some adventure over the last 6 years. 2019, that must feel like an awful long time ago as far as the 32-year-old Spaniard is concerned. He was on the floor this morning and crashed at turn 5 as so many riders found that heartbreaking zone into that right-hander of turn 5. Tricky to negotiate so far this weekend. The BMW safety car then peels away at the front of the grid. 3 minutes we are then until lights out for our 17th Tissot sprint of the campaign. A victory in this 12-lapper, and we'll see Marc Marquez actually tie Jorge Martin in the all-time winners list of sprints. Martin, 16 sprint victories. Marc just one behind on 15. 14 of those he's collected already so far in 2025. Keeping himself as cool as possible then in these hot and humid conditions here in Japan. The heat very soon will be on in terms of the championship checks. Marc Marquez then on the front row of the grid for the 13th time this season. Joan Mir on the front row of the grid for the first time on a factory honour, the first time in 3 years in Portimao. But back on pole position, back with a bang, is Pecco Bagnaia. Marquez has all eyes on motorcycle racing's prize. Can't capture the 2025 MotoGP World title. Over 12 laps coming your way here at the Mobility Resort Motegi in the Tissot Sprint, but he can take another gigantic lead towards his 7th Premier Class crown. His first in 6 long years, going all the way back to 2019. He knows the maths. It's all very simple at this stage of the campaign. He must score more than 3 points over his brother Alex, who is now the only other rider mathematically with a chance of denying Mark that first title in 6 years. Mark can be crowned world champion in the Grand Prix of Japan here tomorrow. He goes from the front row of the grid. Two surprise names in many respects, heading Pecco Bagnaia from the opposite side of the factory Ducati garage. Well, he's on pole position. It's been just the second time this season. Continue his domination of recent events here in Motegi. He was, of course, the victor in both the sprint and the Grand Prix here 12 months ago. There was that graphic on screen, just reminding you that the championship cannot be claimed by Mark today. It all seems rather inevitable, doesn't it? It's all rather academic in terms of him winning the championship this year. Just whether the celebrations will be conducted right here in Japan tomorrow, or whether he'll have to wait until Mandalika over in Indonesia next weekend. Pecco Bagnaia then, on pole position. Can he once again find his sprint winning touch? Gold medal-less, unfortunately, for Bagnaia throughout the whole of 2025. On the front row with Joan Mir and Mark. Mir, one of the real standout performers of this morning's Q2 session. First front row since Portimao 2022, which coincidentally was the last time Mir actually led a Grand Prix. He has never led a sprint. He's never had a chance to do so in this 12-lap battle coming your way here in the late afternoon sunshine in Motegi. Julio Marquez watches on. He knows without any question one of his boys will be MotoGP World Champion. Age 25, it is 99.999% certain that it will be Mark. This is MotoGP, never say never. Pecco Bagnaia then. Just the second time this season on pole position, the first time he's ever started a MotoGP event here in Japan from the front of the grid. Marc Marquez eyeing sprint win number 15 in 2025 as he looks to close out the world title with 5 rounds still remaining. What a year it has been for the factory Ducati superstar. The green flag then clears the back. Bagnaia, Mir, Mark is your front row of the grid. Right time of racing here in Japan in the sprint. It's a really good start from that pole position by Pecco Bagnaia. He's going to get a drop on the field into this tight first corner. He's going to get aggressive. Oh, he's further back. I think the two Aprilis down. Martin and Marco Bezzecchi has gone down really, really hard there. That was a nasty incident for the rider who was fastest yesterday and started in P9. It's a real pinch point on that run down the first corner. Bezzecchi and Martin are out at the first corner.
Mark having some real problems negotiating Pedro Acosta. Contact between the two. It is riders 1 and 72. The two factory Aprilia down. Mir got a good start, but it's Acosta attacking, trying to take second place. Marc Marquez down 1 to 4th.
Yeah, and Acosta back on the inside there. Mark in the braking zone for turn 5. Both factory Aprilias then.
Obviously.
Yeah, that's a real good sign because that was a real nasty landing and a nasty incident there involving the two factory Aprilias. That's their third crashes apiece then this weekend for Martin and Bezzecchi. What a nightmare start to that sprint then for the Nuwali factory.
Pecco Bagnaia is getting the ball under his jumper, running away with this at the moment. Look at the lead he's pulling out over Joan Mir already. This is more competitive than we've seen Pecco Bagnaia in any sprint in 2025. And really, if Joan Mir stays in second place, you feel that might be the best possible thing for Pecco.
There is going to be a 15 sprint success this season for Mark, but he's going to have to work hard for it because there he is, we're on board with him now in 4th place. He's coming from a long, long way back into the 90-degree corner, trying to find a way through on Acosta. There is no way through. Alex goes on the inside of Ralph Fernandez into turn 11, runs in hot though, runs wide. The Spaniard takes the place immediately back.
Yeah, he lost that one off the line. Of course, Bezzecchi was next to Alex Marquez on the grid as well, so I'd like to see how close Alex was to being cleaned out in that first corner. Or did just Bezzecchi have a really bad start, which reversed it back towards Martin. So Bagnaia's lead is already up to 0.6 of a second, and Acosta still cannot clear the Honda of Mir.
Making hay while the sun shines here right now, isn't he? Bagnaia. This is his chance to really threaten a breakaway here. Acosta and Mark can't find a way through on Joan Mir, who's late on the brakes, and that factory Honda once again into turn 3. Acosta's going to have to get on with this pretty sharpish, isn't he now? Trying to maybe get close enough, pick up a little bit of slipstream and attack Mir on the brakes into turn 5. Is he going to be close enough? He certainly is. Yeah, he set this move up going through 3 and 4. That's lovely by Acosta. He picked off Mark in that turn 5 on lap 1. He's picked off now Mir in the same spot on lap 2. Off in a second. Marquez made a mistake there, didn't he, going into turn 5? He charged in there way too hot. And that's cost him, what, about half a dozen bike lengths back to now what is Mir in 3rd.
Pedro Acosta's already been given a track limits warning at the start of lap 2, so he needs to be careful of that as he's trying to chase off after Pecco Bagnaia, whose advantage remains 6:10. So Marc Marquez is nearer to Morbidelli, really, than he is to Pedro Acosta. Well, it's now, of course, Joan Mir immediately up ahead of him. Quartararo is next off the back of this leading group of 6. He's under pressure from Marini's Honda.
Alex keeps showing Ralph Fernandez the front tyre of his Gravini Ducati without actually making the move stick. Maverick Vinales has come from the back of the grid, 23rd up into 16th place, so he's been aggressive at the start of this battle. He just about to be pushed back to 17th now by Taka Nakagami. Down then into turn 11 we go. Static start, hasn't it, to this sprint for Marc Marquez. This is the drama then. We're going to follow Jorge Martin on the factory Aprilia, 17th on the grid. He darts on the inside immediately of Fermin Aldeguer and Jack Billy. You can see Marco Bezzecchi pretty much in the middle of the picture.
Completely loses it, cleans out his teammate. Marco Bezzecchi. It was a case of who he was going to take out there rather than whether he was going to take a ring out. He lost it about 100 metres before he clattered into Bez.
I remember years ago, it was a real nasty incident with Colin Edwards, Lawrence Capirossi and John Hopkins. That was horrendous. When you look at those images, it's a big relief for everybody to see both Bezzecchi and Martin walking away from that crash, because look at Martin. Oh, he just basically headbutts into the side of Bezzecchi's Aprilia.
He's holding his shoulder.
That was awful to watch. Mark then, he finally does make a move on Mio into turn 5, but it's only a very short-lived affair. Mark's having his real issues in that turn 5 here today, because we saw him lose places to Acosta. He crashed there this morning at 5, and now Mir's got him.
Fastest lap of the sprint last time round for Pecco Bagnaia at 1:44.004. Acosta was as quick, but of course exceeded track limits in the process, which is why Bagnaia has the fastest lap. So Acosta now with clear track ahead of him, and he's already scampered half second off the road from Mir. This is the big question now to determine who's going to take the gold medal in this Tissot sprint. Can Acosta close down Pecco Bagnaia? Of course, he caught and passed him last year in this sprint before he crashed out of the lead.
We go from the hairpin curve, the 3rd skier, turn 10. Mir there in 3rd place. He's doing an outstanding job, isn't he, on that factory Honda, on course for what would be his first podium for HRC. His best sprint result previously on the RC213V has been a 6th place. Jerome Campbell then picks up Bagnaia then as he grabs a handful of throttle out of victory corner. Is he storming towards his first sprint victory of 2025, a 143.721 from Bagnaia. That gets another fastest lap of this sprint. He's now 8.5 tenths almost clear of Acosta.
Acosta can go near enough as fast as Bagnaia, but at the moment can't go faster. And that's the problem he's got. He's riding into a brick wall here with Pecco Bagnaia setting in a ferocious pace up front. And Marc Marquez still bottled up behind Joan Mir. Marc Marquez was actually yesterday. Would you rather take the World Championship with a win next weekend or just win it with a 4-2 this weekend? He's currently in P4, and as it stands, he is gaining 5 points over Alex Marquez, who's scoring just that solitary point at the moment in 9th.
He has never finished off the sprint podium in red. That has Mark. Was DNF'd out of the lead last time out in Mazzano, with all of his other finishes so far this year. Well, he hasn't finished lower than 2nd in a sprint as yet. So this is very unfamiliar territory as far as the 93 is concerned. Further back, we're looking at a battle and waging between Quartararo, Marini, Ralph Fernandez, who's doing a real sterling job to keep Alex at bay. Alex just has not been able to get through on the Trackhouse Aprilia rider as Mark closing on the brakes into that tight first gear right-hander of turn 10. But as he got on the power, you can see that squirm, that twitch on the rear tyre. Mark just not looking comfortable at the moment, is he?
No, Alex Marquez not exactly crawling all over the back of Ralph Fernandez. He's in a Trackhouse sandwich at the moment. The 8th and 10th, Ralph Fernandez and Okura. So Alex Marquez at the moment nailed down there for one World Championship point. And of course, Pecco Bagnaia, who's third in the World Championship behind Alex, on course for the maximum of 12 at the moment. Out of the final corner we come. 1/3 distance completed. It's in another fast time, not quite for Bagnaia, but his lead net was over a second.
Yeah, and Bagnaia's got pace that nobody else can match at the moment. He's the only rider on circuit in the 43s, and he's comfortably in those 43s as well. A 143.776. Acosta did a 144.1. Mia a 144.2. Zarco's having a pretty miserable sprint at the moment. No, he was caught up in that first corner drama with the Aprilias. He started in 11th. He's currently down in 17th place, just ahead of Viñales. There is Bagnaia then. That's what a 1.2 second leads look like over Acosta. Once again, Mark tries just to force the issue on me in the turn 5, but there's just no way through. Mark's been kind of stuck in that 4th place now, hasn't he?
He absolutely sends it into 5, closes in on the way into the corner, but then Mir on the Honda just pulls away on the way out of 5. Joan Mir riding so well in 3rd place. He's still keeping Pedro Acosta very much in sight for 2nd and 3rd place. A 44.2 as Mir just goes ever so slightly wide there through 9. He will have the inside line, but he's now given Marc Marquez some encouragement.
Yeah, and has he lost all of his momentum? Has he lost all the drive? Yeah, lost his acceleration coming out of 9. Well, that's the 2nd time then now. He tried it in turn 5 a few laps ago. Now dive bombs Mir up the hill into turn 10. Mir just squared the corner off and hugged the inside line and said, thank you very much, I'll take that P3 back. So this is not going to plan A at all, is it, as far as number 93 is concerned. Mir then back in the bronze medal position, clearing off into the distance. Almost long gone now is Bagnaia. He's going to be 1.5 seconds. Pretty much clear of Acosta as we're about to start lap 5 of 12. Oh, line again. Yeah, it is 1.5 seconds. He is clear of Acosta. First time in this sprint, we got to lap 5 of 12 with Bagnaia's in the 44s.
Still doing 44.1s though, and outside of the top 5. The rest of them are all in the 45s. Well, apart from Ayagura did a 44.9, so Pecco Bagnaia is in a complete class of 1. Of course, he no longer has the number 1 on the front of his Ducati, and his teammates on the verge of the World Championship. But Bagnaia, a welcome return to form, and we're seeing further evidence of that today.
Marini just stuck at the moment behind Quattararo's factory Yamaha. There's been nothing really between those two throughout the opening half of this sprint. And Mir this time around with a little bit of breathing space, a little bit of a breather as he's a good dozen bike lengths clear now, and Mark in 4th place. I don't think too many people saw this coming at all. Bagnaia streaking away at the front of this sprint. We always suspected that Acosta had the pace, had the speed to be in the hunt for the podium. But the fact that we're on lap 6, about to complete half distance of this sprint, and as it stands at the moment, Mark still unable to get through on the factory Honda and Mir. Well, that is a surprise.
Oh, yeah, Marc Marquez tells very much the truth whenever he speaks to us. He's not one to hide his opinions, and he's absolutely backing up his comments yesterday that his one focus this weekend is the World Championship. He will be well aware that Alex Marquez is behind him, because you can see the 3 riders up ahead of him, and none of them are riding Grissini blue, and Alex Marquez still doing 45s in 9th place. In fact, Ayagura right behind him to potentially take away that final point. So Marc Marquez at the moment, in championship terms, is doing all he needs to do. It's certainly below the standards we've seen through on Saturday so far this year.
Bagnaia ticks off another 44.1. But once again, that's 3/10 quicker than Mark in 4th place. 2nd quickest rider currently out on circuit was Mir. Fair play to Mir. He's doing an outstanding job, isn't he, on that factory Honda. We saw how hard he was pushing to keep Mark behind him. Going into that first gear turn 10 on the previous lap, Honda really was making some strange shapes in that first gear braking zone. Back then looking at Ralph Fernandez, who has been quite comfortable, so keeping Alex at bay. That's a battle for 8th and 9th for the bottom end of the point scoring places. Marini just cannot get anywhere close to the Quattararo to even show the Yamaha rider his front wheel. Once again, just showing how good Quattararo is on the brakes on that M1.
There are overtaking opportunities around this Motegi circuit with so many long straights, but the issue, what works against that, is so many of these long straights are out of slow speed corners. So naturally, the bike ahead of you is going to accelerate quickly out of that slow corner before you can pick up the throttle and do the same, which just stretches the field back out again. As Marc Marquez ever so slightly wide there, coming out of turn 9. So Marc looked close up on the way into the corner from Joan Mir, but as Mir now picks up the throttle and just scampers off into the distance away from Marc Marquez, this is not the easy overtake that many might have thought it would have been for Marc. Look, he's just not close enough to launch one at the inside of Mir from there.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have the acceleration grip, the traction, does he? On that Ducati, he's wide again. Steaming into turn 11. We've seen so many mistakes. This has been about the scrappiest sprint of the campaign so far for the 93 as he tries to find his way into the middle places. Over the line, Bagnaia goes at 44.2. It's been his slowest lap of this sprint so far, but he's still 2.2 seconds clear of Acosta and still miles ahead in terms of pace over those pursuing him. Here goes Marc then. In way too hot there, wasn't he? On the brakes into 11.
Watching that, just trying to keep calm. He's not one who ever hides his emotions. He wears his heart on his sleeve. They're creeping slowly back towards Acosta here on the last lap. That's Andrea Bastianini on one of the Tech 3 KTMs out of the running. He was at the back of the field anyway, so Bastianini will not be scoring any points today. KTM's hopes all resting on Acosta, who's still got that sort of half-second gap to Mir, who is not only staying ahead of Marc Marquez, but very much keeping up with Acosta. What a ride this has been from the 2020 World Champion.
We've not had a crash graphic for the beast. There are no obvious signs of any damage to his KTM leathers, so it looks like maybe his RC16 has given up the ghost, as now Marc really does start to hunt down Mir. Not going to be close enough to attack his fellow Spaniard on the brakes, though, into turn 9. I would love to know, I'm desperate to know what has happened to Pecco Bagnaia. What has been this transformation as Marc comes from a long way back into turn 10. Yeah, well, that was just... block pass, wasn't it, from Marc? Just running him out of the paintwork, going, well, if I'm here, you can't turn in. That's it, game over.
Well, what Mir did the previous times, he let Marc do that and just ducked back underneath him and took the inside on the way out. But Marc just hung him out to try next side. Once again, it looks like Marc's not particularly comfortable through turn 11. This time, though, Mir was hung out to try the outside, had no way of being able to duck back underneath Marc Marquez. He had to wait for Marquez to pick up the throttle and head off down the back straight. This is the move. Marc coming from a reasonable long way back, a couple of bike lengths behind, and Mir sees him coming and already jumps out of the way.
Yeah, he had to force it. He had to really force it because Mir has been so good on the brakes in all of the overtaking spots. As an ex-racer himself, Davide Tardozzi would have known that that was the only real, well, the way that Marc could have made that pass. Just coming back to Bagnaia, what has happened on that? His last 6 sprints, 12th in Germany, 7th in Renault, a DNF in Austria, 13th in Hungary, 14th in Barcelona, 13th in Misano. He's been absolutely nowhere in the sprints of late. Yet here he is now, 2.5 seconds clear of Pedro Acosta. Come on, Ducati, spill the beans. What have you done to Bagnaia in his GP25? It was a DNF mechanical for Andrea Bastianini. He has stopped with a technical issue. There's far too many technical issues, you have to say, at the moment, coming the way of the KTM riders.
Yeah, they were riddled with them through the weekend in Misano. Acosta, arguably, cost a front row by some problems with the throttle in qualifying earlier on today, and clearly there wasn't much running to plan on Bastianini's Tech 3 RC16. Here is Pecco Bagnaia, though, 3.5 laps away from a first sprint win. It's September the 27th, and we're closing in on Pecco Bagnaia's first sprint win of 2025. He's got 3 more laps to secure it.
And he's made it look easy. He has made it look so easy. What a sprint Saturday this has been for Bagnaia. Pole position this morning with a new all-time lap record, a barnstorming 142.911. This is vintage Bagnaia. This is the Bagnaia that was lit up the MotoGP World Championship in 2022 and 2023. We won the title, and most recently in 2024.
Marc's called Acosta here. Acosta's back in the 45s and he's in Strugglesville now, and Marc Marquez did a 44.6. Finally, once he's cleared of Mir, he's now quicker than Bagnaia on the racetrack. The horse is bolted in terms of winning the sprint, but Marc Marquez still could secure a factory Ducati 1-2 here.
You know, really lonely 5th for Frankie Morbidelli. He's not really had any issues behind him in terms of Quartararo putting any pressure on him, but he's not really been able to stick his nose in the fight with Acosta Mark and Mir ahead of him. Well, we said a few moments ago that all of Mark's sprint finishes so far in 2025 have been first or second, and he's looking to try and preserve that record here late on. 2.5 laps remaining as he really does close in on Acosta. Is he going to maybe try and threaten the same move on Acosta into turn 10 as he puts on, he put manners on Mir, didn't he, into the hairpin corner a couple of laps ago. He's certainly going to be close enough. He's going to really think about it. He darts to the inside, and now this is exactly the tactics of Marc Marquez on the inside of Acosta, taking the piece of time like Acosta wanted to occupy, and indeed he is. Then now up into P2.
Yeah, that had been coming for around about a lap. Could have quickly caught Acosta. That was always on. In terms of the Marquez brothers, bittersweet news for you. Mark's up to second, but Alex Marquez is now being passed by Ayagura. He is out of the points now, back in 10th place. We said over the weekend, Marc Marquez needs to gain 3 points over Alex Marquez to win the World Championship. Already today, he's gaining 9 of them.
Yeah, but no, the only previous time this year that Alex has seen a checker flag in a sprint and not scored points. He was involved in a bit of drama on that occasion. This is not a given either, is it? But Acosta's going to claim a bronze medal here because Mir is still right in this hunt. In fact, Mir on the last lap is half a second faster than Acosta, trying to hold on to that second place early on and try and maybe put some pressure on Bagnaia. You think Acosta's burnt up those Michelin tyres here, medium front, soft rear, like the entirety of the field, but Acosta might be just having a few late grip issues here to contend with.
I totally understand why that was Costa's focus early on, as we now see a Honda pulling out. This is Johan Zarco. He was in 15th place last time he came across the line, so he's entered the pits and retired. He becomes our 4th retirement of the sprint, of course. Bastianini we saw pulling out a couple of months ago, and both of the factory Aprilias having taken each other off on the first corner of lap 1.
Yeah, Zarco was one of the 5 riders that was caught up in that first corner melee, which took out Martin and Bezzecchi. Just a reminder, the FIA MotoGP stewards will look closely at that incident post-sprint. So keep an eye on social media platforms to see if there is any incoming penalty. There's been no information on as yet on the conditions of Bezzecchi and Martin. They are, of course, both able to walk away from the scene under their own steam. But Martin certainly maybe some concerns over a shoulder injury. 2.6 seconds then Bagnaia's lead is over Mark.
This is where Alex Marquez, lost the front there, coming through turn 9. That's where he lost the final points position to Ayagura. Ayagura's just going to motor past us with no acceleration for Alex Marquez, given that he was trying to save that Ducati on his knees. So he's going to score nothing unless anything happens ahead. And Pecco Bagnaia, what can we say now that he's back? He's 1 lap away from a first gold medal of the season. And it's a weekend where so much of the focus is on 93. Today, though, it's all about 63.
Marquez 2.4 seconds he is behind Bagnaia as we start this final lap. Has Mir got anything in the tank left to try and claim his first sprint podium in Honda colours? What was the gap between Mir and Acosta at the start of this lap? I think it was just under 0.6 of a second. Well, where has this Pecco Bagnaia been in recent races? It has been a full-blown crisis of confidence, hasn't it, for much of 2025 as far as Pecco Bagnaia is concerned. Those close to, including his sister Carola, well, they've seen just how low he has been throughout 2025 on so many occasions. But it's fair to say this has been an emphatic response by Bagnaia. What a Saturday he's having here in Motegi. Yeah, the 63 fans could barely watch, but Bagnaia has been in cruise control. It is going to be a start-to-finish success here in this Grand Prix of Japan Spring.
Any medals a bit hard to come by for Pecco Bagnaia in the sprint this season. Yellow flags come out in the 3rd sector on this final lap. Jack Miller is dropping down the order, but Pecco Bagnaia is now 3 corners away from a sprint win that has been nearly a full year in the making.
Jack Miller was crashed out on the Prima Pramac Yamaha late on in this sprint. Miller was just outside the points scoring places in 11th. Through the victory corner, though, goes Pecco Bagnaia, and it's his first sprint victory of 2025. And surely now we can say Bagnaia is back. What a sprint Saturday has been for the Italian. A pole position and sprint victory double. He made it look so easy. He led from the first corner to the last. And Pecco Bagnaia with a pat on the tank of that factory Ducati GP25. It has not been very often so far this season that he has had Marc's number. Well, on this occasion, he has. Marc Marquez crosses the line in second place. So Marc continues that unbelievable record of never finishing a lower than second in a sprint so far this season. It's a Ducati factory 1-2 at the end of that 12-lap battle. Pedro Acosta, after all of his Q2 dramas this morning with that technical issue, he does find himself on the podium in third place. 0.6 of a second he was clear of Mir. Points for Morbidelli, Quartararo, Marini, Ralph Fernandez and Agora.
So second place is enough for Marc Marquez tomorrow to win the World Championship, and that's even if Alex Marquez wins. Alex Marquez needs to outscore him by 7 points or more to keep it alive to Indonesia. That looks a remote possibility from the evidence of today, with Alex Marquez scoring nothing. And it's a weekend where we're set to crown a new world champion, but the double world champion Pecco Bagnaia reminding us just who he is.
Let's go and get the thoughts of Ducati boss Gigi Dall'Igna, who joins Jack.
Gigi, congratulations. You have to tell us, this turnaround for Pecco is nothing short of miraculous. He was 13th 2 weeks ago, and he just annihilated everybody. What have you done to that bike?
Yeah, no, for sure the Misano test was really important for us. We did some different things, and I think that we find out the way. It's important for the team. I'm really happy for Pecco because he's training all the season, and you know, I think that his team and Pecco deserve it.
So you've been losing your patience as well as Pecco at times this year. How much of a relief does a day like today bring?
You know, it's a beautiful day. You know, I cannot tell anything more.
Congratulations.
Sprint win number 12 for Pecco Bagnaia. There was late drama for Aussie Jack Miller. This was going into turn 9. Looked like he was maybe slightly offline there, and as he threw it onto the left-hand side, that wide star M1, biting the dust underneath Miller. What a ride, what a day, what a weekend so far for Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, he's taken the counsel of Casey Stoner throughout the Misano Grand Prix weekend and at the post-race test in Misano. Casey Stoner, a double MotoGP world champion and one of the best to ever do it, starts to fight your corner, starts to give you some advice and some encouragement. As Bagnaia said, you listen and you pay attention. And that's, well, it's just a completely different Pecco Bagnaia. Alex Marquez, well, he knew it was most likely that his remote title hopes would be extinguished here this weekend in Motegi. That looks like it will come to a conclusion here tomorrow. It is almost comeback loaded as far as Marc is concerned, as he moves on to 521 points.
Emotion.
There's so much emotion, so much relief as far as Pecco Bagnaia is concerned. He has had his critics, he has had his doubters, but he has proven once again, form is temporary, class is permanent. And after a classy performance with a record-breaking Q2 lap this morning, it's almost like the weight of the world has been lifted off the shoulders of the 28-year-old Italian. Great things, brilliant to see.
You don't win 2 MotoGP World Championships by accident, and you do not become a bad rider overnight. And Pecco Bagnaia reminding us today that the magic is still there, the brilliance that secured him the World Championships in 2022 and 2023 looks to be back. He will look to double the distance tomorrow, as he did last year in 2024. And boy, could Ducati be the almightiest of parties tomorrow. Bagnaia back in business, and Marc Marquez 24 hours away from the title.
He has always said, I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can deliver. I know what I can produce, has Bagnaia, when he's been through, as he admitted, the toughest times of his MotoGP career, arguably some of the toughest times of his entire Grand Prix career. Great to see him back, fully on song. Joan Mir's best sprint results on a factory Honda. I think it's his best result all told.
Yeah.
I think his previous best in the Grand Prix was 5th. He was only 0.6 of a second away from the podium. A great day as far as Mir is concerned. The Marquez camp, well, they acknowledge Pecco Bagnaia so often casting a supporting role next to Mark in that factory Ducati garage this year. So often completely overshadowed, at times outclassed by his teammate this year. But that was some response. Can't keep a good rider down for too long, can you? It will just be enormous relief, I'm sure. How are you feeling, Davide? Well, I'm sure he's feeling just fine after the factory Ducati team take a 1-2 here in Motegi. What a job. What a job. A 42.9 in qualifying this morning. That is a career best sprint result, as said, for Joan Mir on the factory Honda. Just maybe there is going to be a podium in the offing for HRC before the end of the season. The official Honda team, of course. We've seen Johan Zarco have memorable moments already so far in 2025. But having taken, 11 previous sprint victories, Pecco Bagnaia, this will rank right up there with the best, as it's now a dozen sprint successes for the 28-year-old. Here is Pedro Acosta then, an eventful Saturday here in Motegi for the Spaniard. He's third and he's with Jack.
Pedro, congratulations onto the sprint podium here in Japan. A great start, and looks like you were hanging on at the end, but after the troubles this morning, it feels like you've really salvaged a solid day.
Yeah, I mean, for how many mixes we make today, it was not bad at all. It's true that I think we have potential for more, but it's true that, like I said, with all the problems, we more or less solved the day for this. I just want to thank all the guys that don't get so nervous after all the things that happened today. For this, let's try to avoid this mistake and be slightly more precise.
Good job, well done.
Thank you, boys.
Third sprint podium of the campaign for Pedro Acosta, his 7th in total. I guess making amends for last year, where he should really have been part of the medal ceremony 12 months ago. Well, he's inching ever closer to 2025 glory. Second in the sprint here in Japan, it's Marc Marquez with Jack.
Mark, you said this morning that it wasn't going to come easy, and we could see that in the sprint. A difficult one to manage, but those late moves on Johan and Pedro give you a great chance to wrap up the ultimate goal tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite difficult because I think I have the two most difficult riders to overtake on the break point. They are braking super late, and then every time I try, I went wide. And I was losing time, then I saw that Pecco go away, and I decided just try to do my race. And yeah, then when I was in front, the pace was good, the feeling every time is better and better. So tomorrow will be a long race, but we cannot forget that our main target this weekend is another one.
Great job, well done.
Thank you, thank you.
So close, he can almost reach out and grab that plaque, which he will surely be adding to the Tower of Champions. Come back loading. Well, it's almost loaded, isn't it, as far as the 32-year-old Spaniard is concerned. He really did have to work hard for that one, but it has been the best Saturday so far 2025 for Pecco Bagnaia. A record-breaking pole and his first sprint win of the season. I'm sure he's delighted. Pecco pummeled them here in Motegi. He's with Jack.
Pecco, what a remarkable turnaround. 2 weeks ago in Misano, you were 13th. Now you've taken pole position, led every lap, won the sprint and demolished the competition. What are the emotions like now that you are truly back to your best?
I'm back to do my favorite races, starting well and then pushing, not fighting behind. But in any case, apart joking, I'm super happy. I want to say thanks to the team that, like always, have done an incredible job to set to me finally a fantastic bike, and then I was able to push, I was able to control, and it's super sweet, this emotion, so super happy.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, congratulations. Awesome performance by an awesome rider. He said coming into this Japanese Grand Prix, it feels like 2025 has been a throwaway. Well, that's how you respond to the difficult times. That's how you bounce back in times of adversity. Davide Tardozzi celebrating a brilliant 1-2 for the factory Ducati team. And it's the thumbs up, it's the fist clench from Pecco Bagnaia. Back on the top step of a sprint podium. He's going to collect a gold medal. And he completely double here tomorrow. Bravo Pecco. We are here was the message. Ducati have always been there for him, even in the toughest times, the lowest moments. And there's been plenty to pick from so far in 2025. But what a Saturday that has been. It could be some weekend, couldn't it, this for the factory Ducati team. Pole position, a sprint win for Bagnaia, and tomorrow it looks a given, it looks a formality that Marc Marquez will finally capture that elusive 7th MotoGP World Championship. Medal ceremony then underway here in Japan.
Actually wrap up the Triple Crown tomorrow, Ducati. It was a long shot coming to this weekend that they could win the Teams Championship. They had to gain 52 points over the weekend over the nearest challengers, Gresini. Well, Ducati's got a maximum hold today of 21 points. Gresini scored nothing, so it might well happen tomorrow that Ducati secure all 3 titles. Pedro Acosta collects a bronze medal from 4th on the grid up to 3rd. There's a 3rd sprint podium of the season. As the most recent 2 came either side of the summer break in Brno and in Austria. It's a silver for Marc Marquez, which is usually as bad as it gets on Saturday afternoons for him. Had to work hard to clear Mir and Acosta. By the time he did, Pecco Bagnaia was long gone. Tomorrow might well be coronation day for Marc Marquez. But is it comeback day for Pecco Bagnaia? He finally has gold around his neck. Once again, a first sprint win of 2025.
It's a happy Pecco with his sprint-winning Prosecco. The biggest party, well, that might be kicked off here in Motegi tomorrow. It's for the 4th time here. This iconic Japanese venue. Marc Marquez could be crowned world champion. 2nd in the sprint. He starts to digest what happened over those 12 laps with Pecco Bagnaia. Pedro Acosta, he put up a real great fight. Then he was 2nd for much of that sprint before he got passed late on by Marc. Had enough though in his pocket to hold off fellow Spaniard Joan Mir to collect the bronze medal. Now though, we turn all eyes onto the biggest day of the season so far here in Motegi tomorrow. Make sure you join us wherever you are in the world, because you could be witnessing the completion of one of sport's great comebacks. Marc Marquez so close to the world title.
Well, we've had a comeback of a different sort today. Bagnaia back to winning ways in the sprint. Marc Marquez with a late rally to take 2nd. Pedro Acosta on the podium in 3rd. Mir 4th, his best ever sprint result ahead of Frankie Morbidelli. Fabio Quartararo, after a sprint long pressure from Luca Marini, takes 6th. Double points finish for Trekkhouse today. Fernandez Negura 8th and 9th. That left Alex Marquez 10th and no points today. That leaves Marc Marquez needing 2nd or better tomorrow in the Grand Prix. 4 retirements, or in fact 5, with Jack Miller's crash on the final lap. The 2 Aprilias crashing together on the 1st lap. with Jorge Martin at the medical centre, we understand, at the moment, undergoing some checks. So Marc Marquez leads the World Championship by 191 points. Essentially, it means this: unless Alex Marquez gains 7 points on him tomorrow, he's champion. Second place or higher will be enough. Pecco Bagnaia is third overall and has stretched his advantage back down to 20 points now over Marco Bezzecchi, who did not score today. Ducati are the Constructors' champions, of course. As far as the runner-up spot is concerned, KTM certainly taking a big dent out of a pretty advantage today. The gap is now 18 between the two. Team Championship, well, as mentioned, Ducati had a long shot to win the championship this weekend. They needed to gain 52 points over Gresini this weekend. Today, they gained the maximum, 21. That could be wrapped up too tomorrow afternoon. Independent standings there. Well, Alex Marquez, of course, very much on course for the independent crown. That could also have been wrapped up this weekend, although those hopes have been dented today after he failed to score. Frankie with his 5th place, and Fabio Di Gianantonio's failure to score means there are now 6 points between the BR46 duo. In the independent team standings, well, not a lot has changed here. Gresini scored nothing today. They were 10th and 11th, 5 points for BR46, who's then within 107 of Gresini. Tectory and Trackhouse level for third after Trackhouse's double points finish today. Some highlights then. And this is a sprint that will certainly go in the Pecco Bagnaia highlight reel. Well positioned then, Bagnaia immediately seizing the lead that he would not relinquish for the remainder of the 12-lapper. Marc Marquez, not the best of starts, but at least it was better than it was for Aprilia, with Jorge Martin losing control and clattering into his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. Alex Rins also having to skate off through the gravel trap. Hope that both Aprilia riders are fit to start the Japanese Grand Prix tomorrow. Marc Marquez had his work cut out and his hands full trying to clear Joan Mir. 2 previous failed attempts before he finally solved that puzzle. Was serenely clear out the front. This was attempt number 2 for Marc Marquez. Tim rather far, that's attempt number 3 into turn number 10. The previously running hot into 10. His third and final attempt was successful. Joan Zarco's Honda didn't make the finish. Joan Mir's Honda did though in 4th place, his best ever sprint result. 3rd place in the end went to Pedro Acosta as he relinquished that spot in second to Marc Marquez in the latter stages. But that was all a little too late for the 93 to chase down the 63. A final lap crash for Jack Miller took him out of the equation. But as far as Pecco Bagnaia is concerned, on a weekend where potentially we herald the greatest comeback in sporting history, it's a comeback of sorts for Pecco Bagnaia, who takes his first sprint win of the season. History beckons though for his teammate tomorrow. Marc Marquez knows that a top 2 finish will secure the MotoGP World Championship. Wherever you are in the world, make sure you're with us as history beckons at the Japanese Grand Prix.